Final news topic of the week. A demo came out for Riven. John, you've been playing it. Why don't you tell us what
Oh
Riven
yeah.
is, why you're
All right.
excited about it?
So, okay, Riven is the sequel to Myst, and Myst was at one point the most successful PC game in history at that point in time. It sold a lot of copies. It was a essentially a point and click adventure game played from the first person, built in HyperCard, where you're navigating around this island, solving obscure puzzles across ages through these books. And it was really well loved for its storytelling atmosphere and what it was doing at the time, and it's continued to receive a lot of life. There's been many sort of re-releases of the original Myst. There was Real Myst, and then they built on Real Myst multiple times. There's even a Quest native version of Myst you can play in your headset, which blew my mind at the time. Just the idea of putting on a headset and walking around Myst Island, great stuff. But they had ambitions for the sequel, which the sequel, of course, being Riven, which was released later in the 90s. And I think this one was a significant visual upgrade over the original. Still pre-rendered CGI, but like obviously like their ability to do pre-renders massively improved. And it looked awesome in those original shots. But then as Cyan continued to make games, and even when they ventured into the world of real-time 3D graphics, which they've done many times, the games looked amazing, but you could still it never quite had that look of like, this looks like a pre-rendered game. Until now. I feel like Riven, they've built this in Unreal Engine 5, and they're able to leverage some of those new technologies to create something that finally truly does, to the eye, look a lot. It looks like real-time versions of the original CGI
That's
uh,
awesome.
pieces of artwork. And that just, to me, seeing that finally like running around in real time in that world was awesome. It looks so freaking good. Has great HDR support as well. It's just densely packed with detail. Everything is super like dense and rounded. It just looks so smooth, and it feels modern, yet it really recalls that original look in a way that really took me by surprise.
Hmm.
So I was super happy to see that. It's also going to support VR, which is cool.
Wow.
And I would also note this what's interesting now. I want to explore more of this is that they've actually, it's not just like here's Myst one or Riven with one to one the original puzzles. The actual puzzles elements have changed, so the game itself is different, which
Hmm.
I'm curious to see how that plays out. The only thing I would say, it's not a huge criticism, but the character interactions in the game world. In the original, of course, they used FMV characters, and the FMV was quite excellent. And we saw with the Seventh Guest VR, they were able to essentially map FMV, like filmed characters, onto like a 3D model of sort. But of course, those were ghosts, so it kind of worked a little better here. These are real people, but they've essentially rendered them out with normal polygons, and the models do look good, although the animation of them seems to play at a lower rate than the frame rate on PC, where
Huh.
the game was running at like 120 FPS no problem, but like the character animation was like at a slightly lower rate, so that looked a little jarring. I hope they can fix that.
Cool.
Uh, but the thing I'm really curious about though is that this is also receiving a native Quest 3 version,
Really?
Whoa. And
and
it's UE5.
I don't know what that's gonna be. Like, what the heck are they gonna be able to do with that? Like, that's asking a ton from a mobile chipset that has to display this at like a high frame rate twice essentially. So
I
I'm
don't even
genuinely
know.
shockingly curious. I mean, I want to know what that's going to mean, because with the other thing, like the Mist thing, for instance, there were some changes, of course, but it looked reasonably like the other versions that you could get playing in pancake mode. Here though, I just don't see it. Like, I don't think you could pull this off on a headset at this fidelity. So I'm kind of waiting for the final game to drop, because I really just got to know, like, how do you bring a game like this to a headset like that and have it look anything like what you're doing on the PC side? And by the way,
Right.
the PC version supports VR as well. Not the demo, but the final game will, which means you could also just conceivably use it with the Quest headset anyway,
Yeah. Wow.
which seems like
Okay.
the better way to go. But I guess for people that want the all in one experience, I don't know. We'll find out when it hits. But this is going to be an interesting case of a game where they're shipping on two drastically different platforms. Like the gulf between these is so big in terms of potential power, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And we've not seen anything attempt to leverage UE5 features that then also show up on something like a Quest headset.
I wonder if
So-
they're just going to turn them off or something. Like you
They-
can turn off nanite. I've done it.
You can. I wonder if they can make something that still manages to convey that look, though. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
right.
Well, back in the
curious.
day, there was like a round table which I was at with Tim Sweeney and some of the other Epic guys. It was when Lumen
Name
in the
Bleaker,
land of
Tim Sweeney.
before he made his
Myth
prophecy.
prophecy.
And yeah, it was a round table. It was around the time of Lumen in the Land of Nanite, the original UE5 demo, and they were talking about the fact that these projects are scalable. There are going to be fallbacks. So I guess this is going to be the one, right? Okay, where that happens.
Yep. This could be the most extreme case we've seen yet.
I'm curious because what happens to you if you turn off a nanite right now? I showed it off in, I think it was my UE5 roundup video in like, must have been October or November of last year, where you can turn off nanite and it just uses the low res fallback mesh for nanite, which for some objects can be fine, but for some others it's not at all, and it would require a hand tuned look to make it look right. And man, but also like, this game, John, has like really great, like, to make it look that CG look, it's got to have like super sharp shadows, and mobile hardware just almost doesn't have shadows usually. It's going to be
Right.
curious to see how they even get this to scale.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fancy taking a look at this one once the game is complete, John?
I will probably do something with it, I think, because it comes out very soon.
Like June
cool.
20th or something, isn't it? I swear.
Like in like 10 days.
Yeah.
So
or maybe it's even earlier.
yeah, I think it'll be worth looking at just because of that gap. Beyond everything, that's one reason, of course. Everything else, like the game itself, is absolutely gorgeous. And realizing this in real time is something I've always wanted to see. So
Okay, cool.